So the future of Ange Postecoglou is up in the air at Tottenham Hotspur. Many believe he will not make the summer and he will be sacked by Daniel Levy. Therefore, there's a lot of predictions and chatter around who will be the next Tottenham Hotspur manager and also what the club will look like going into the next season. So today on the Sonny Talk Spurs YouTube channel, we're going to be talking about all this breaking news and deep diving into it. But before we go any further, if you are new to the Sonny Talk Spurs YouTube channel, then drop us a like, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and also leave your comments down below. Who do you want as our next manager? So yes, I had to jump on a video and address all this speculation and all this chat about managers and the setup of the football club going into what will be the 2025-26 season, because the current season is a bit of a write-off unless Ange Postecoglou, has a miracle and wins the Europa League for Tottenham. We've obviously got the huge game coming up in around about a week and a bit's time against Eintracht Frankfurt, which is a must-win, not just for the club, but for Ange Postecoglou's future. And I've made it clear what I think of Ange Postecoglou. I want him to depart the football club in the summer. I don't think it's worked. It's a shame it hasn't worked because the project and all that, it's just not all connected up. So there needs to be a massive change at Tottenham Hotspur, and that's sort of what this video is about today. Now, I could go into dramatic detail about the obvious change, which is at the top, and Daniel Levy, but we all know that isn't going to happen for probably a long time. So I'm going to move that to one side because I've made my thoughts clear on Daniel Levy. I don't want him at the football club. And if he is to remain at the football club, I'd rather he be here in a business aspect because he's good at that, but he's just not good when it comes to the football. So what we'll do is we'll start off with the manager because there's been some more talk about what could possibly happen with the future of Ange Postecoglou and who could replace him as Spurs boss. But before we dive into that, I just want to say nearly 80% of you watching this right now are not subscribed to the Sonny Talk Spurs YouTube channel. What are you doing? It's the best community to be a part of. I do so many new Tottenham Hotspur videos reacting to transfers, breaking news and match reactions. So it's the best channel on YouTube talking about Spurs. So get down below, you know what to do. I'm also always in the comments replying. So it's a really good community we are building here, and I'm on the road to 10,000 subscribers. So why not join now ahead of this new, hopefully, era of Tottenham Hotspur. But now, let's get on with this video. So a few days ago, Jack Pitt-Brooke, who is the Tottenham correspondent from The Athletic, tweeted, "Tottenham mate Andoni Iraola top target if they change manager this summer. Ange Postecoglou future in serious doubt. Marco Silva and Thomas Frank under consideration." Now these are the three names who have been bandied around for ages. I did a tier list actually ranking all the possible Tottenham Hotspur managers. Go and see that if you haven't after this. But that's the order I've sort of put it in. Andoni Iraola at the top, Thomas Frank, and then Marco Silva. Marco Silva, I'm fine with him staying at Fulham. I think that's a good club for him to stay at. I don't really think he could go up that next level. It'd be a bit like sort of what happened with Nuno at Spurs. But I'm actually not too fussed about if we go for Iraola or Thomas Frank. I think Iraola is the ideal option because it's a similar style and it gives me that Pochettino vibe. Because that's what I think Daniel Levy really wants again. He wants that, passion and, a manager who is young and has got innovative skills. And that's Andoni Iraola. With Ange, it's got a bit stale. It's not really, he's the second oldest manager in the Premier League, where Iraola is one of the younger ones. And he can really build on it. He can improve players because, Daniel Levy has gone around the houses, hasn't he? He went for Poch, which was a manager who he wanted to invest in. Well, until he didn't invest. Then he went for some winners and didn't win with them. And then he went back to Ange and it hasn't worked. So I like the idea of Andoni Iraola. I've said that on many videos. I like the idea of Thomas Frank. I'm actually warming to that maybe a bit more than I was a few weeks back because I think he's really underrated and what he's done at Brentford is incredible. And how he's improved players, the scouting network, the training. It's all really, really like world-class facilities to be working under, considering the size of the club. But I've seen a lot of people saying, well, these three managers, Tottenham will just want to, be a mid-table club. They'll be happy with finishing in the top 8. No, I don't think that's right at all. I think these managers, deserve their next step. I think they do, especially Iraola and Frank more than Silva, because, you know, they've worked really hard. They've worked their way through football. They've, you know, done some really undeniably amazing jobs at, you know, Iraola's done it at multiple clubs. Frank's worked his way up at one club and got them into like being a stable Premier League side, improving so many individual players at both Brentford and Bournemouth equally. So I do like the idea of either one of them coming in and, you know, putting their blueprint on this club, because a lot of these big clubs now, you know, even your Manchester United and Chelsea, like to work like Brighton or Brentford or Bournemouth, which is sort of showing where football's come to. I mean, you've just got to look at Bournemouth's new training facility that they opened this week. They're really, you know, working their way up the league when it comes to, you know, having state-of-the-art facilities. So I would be very keen for both managers, even in this Jack Pitt-Brook article. I think Iraola's release clause is £10 million, and funny enough, we might not pay up for player wages, but we pay up for managers. So I would be keen for either or. You know, if we went for Frank over Iraola, if Iraola's hard to get out, I can see Iraola being a super coach. I could see him managing a top European club, whereas Thomas Frank, I think, you know, his move, this is more of a sensible move for him than it is for a massive, massive club. So I really like the idea of that. So, but we've got to watch this space when it comes to that.
Let's talk about Iraola, because a trophy would probably justify his decision to move from Spain to England. He was doing very well with Rayo Vallecano, has come across to Bournemouth. He's done a terrific job. Bill Foley looked after him when, after the first 10-15 games, it looked as if they were certainties for relegation. They turned it around very quickly after that. He got his methods across, and his team have been causing the big boys problems. However, ever since he was linked with the move to Real Madrid and elsewhere, I think we've linked him with Tottenham now. Crook wrote the story about 10 days ago that he was one of the candidates that Tottenham were thinking about. The form's fallen off a cliff.
Yeah, it has. But also, when you have a squad like theirs, what I mean by that, the amount of players that they have to choose from, when you start going away from their first, I don't know, 12, 13 players, the drop-off is drastic. And to ask these players to deliver on a consistent basis every single game, the level of performance that they have with the intensity that they do under the management, I think is very difficult. I watched them against Man City, and I'm getting the privilege to do it again this weekend in the league, and they spanked Man City. Not Man City now, where everyone seems to have beat them. This was early on, and it was a massive upset.
I think that was the first league game that they lost, wasn't it? Did they lose to Tottenham in the Cup?
November, wasn't it?
And
yeah,
then straight afterwards lost to Bournemouth, I think.
And then obviously they go and they put on an unbelievable performance. I think that the ownership takes a massive piece of credit for going and finding the manager in Iraola, but also to stick with him, because it was an unpopular choice to get rid of Gary O'Neill at that point, if you remember.
Not among the Bournemouth fans, actually.
But it was in
wider public.
In wider public, it was an unpopular decision. They did that.
It was a gamble.
He lost the first 10, was it, or hadn't won in the first 10. And then obviously he came out and backed him and said, "No worries, it's going to come good." And as a player, when you hear that from the ownership and the board, and you genuinely mean it, because some places do it, don't they? Then you'd think one more game, he's gone. But he came out back to him. As players, then you have to fall into line. And I'm guarantee you that manager will turn around and say, with that moment, with the manager being ownership being aligned, that's where we've kicked on.
In which case, because of the way that they backed him when other clubs might have sacked him, does he owe them something now?
I think if Simon Jordan was sat in this chair, he'd be saying the only loyalty in football comes from the fans. And unfortunately, if you're a club of Bournemouth stature, when a more established, a more elite club come calling, and Tottenham are undoubtedly a much bigger club than Bournemouth, I think it's difficult. To
Who would he be better off working for?
In terms of...
Well, would it be better for him to be at Tottenham, or would it be better for him to be at Bournemouth?
Look, I think it's nailed on. Obviously, Tottenham is a bigger club than Bournemouth, as we stand and as we talk about it. I think if you were looking at, if a manager's point of view, you'd look at Spurs, go, right, I can change that, because every manager thinks they can. You look at the ownership and think, will I really get the money? I'm not too sure. The big thing for anybody now is look at the list of top managers that have been there, failed to do it. So it would be that 50-50. Can I be the one that does it and I'll get all the plaudits for it? Or is there something systemic within there that doesn't work? That's why all these greats have failed.
But what's the worst that can happen if he goes to Tottenham and he's another manager who can't turn their fortunes around? He'll get another job. Look at Nuno Espirito Santo. He got fired by Tottenham. He's about to take Forest to the Champions League.
He didn't go straight to Forest.
Conte's got a good job in Italy now. So
remember, he didn't go straight to Forest.
No.
Did he go Saudi, I believe?
Yeah,
he went Saudi for a little while. I think we have to remember as well, a lot of these guys don't want to lose their job out of ego anyway, but they then also get into that kind of Graham Potter role where you start trying to find the perfect job, and a year, 2 years out of football is a long time. Of course,
there is no job at Tottenham because Ange Postecoglou is still in situ, and they could well win the Europa League. Tottenham, they've got Eintracht Frankfurt in a quarter-final upcoming, not too far away.
Great game of football.
If they were to win the two quarter-finals, get into the semi-finals, anything could happen, can't it?
yeah, although they could find themselves in an Eric Ten Hag situation where a cup win masks the foulings of a season. They've lost 15 games in the Premier League. I know they've had injuries. They lost at home to Leicester. That takes some doing, no matter how many injured players you've got.
And then we have the news about the makeup of Tottenham Hotspur. Because as I said, Daniel Levy sits at the top. You have Scott Munn. I'm not really sure what he does in particular. And then you have, the transfer department, which is sort of headed up by Johan Lang. Now, the thing is with Tottenham, a lot of discussion has been that Ange Postecoglou has been backed. He has received a lot of money. But everyone has questioned some of the recruitment because it's been proper slapdash. We either spend a lot of money on a lot of rubbish, or we recruit really cheaply and they come good, or they're too young and they're not experienced enough. It's a bit of a mishmash at the moment. And last summer was the perfect example of that. Some really good signings, but we only had one player who was going to be a guaranteed start, and that was Dominic Solanke. Whereas Archie Gray and Bergvall were seen as players for the future who have just sort of been chucked in the deep end this season. Same with Wilson Odobert as well. So it is a sort of mishmash, and I'm not sure. I mean, I'm quite on the fence whether Johan Lang is doing a good job or not. But the news this week about Fabio Paratici, obviously used to work at the club in a capacity. He's been banned actually from footballing activities from stuff that he was involved in at Juventus, and his ban is up in June, or the end of June, I should say. And there's been mixed reports about where his future could lie. And a tweet read that, breaking, Fabio Paratici is on track to return to Tottenham once his suspension ends in the coming months. Paratici has been involved in discussions regarding midfield reinforcements for the summer. This news come as a blow to AC Milan, who are interested in handing Paratici's role once his suspension ends. And then there was another report coming out from Matt Law that says that Fabio Paratici's worldwide ban ends in June the 30th, but Tottenham currently have not held talks over offering him a full-time return, because there was a bit of mixed thing, because he was at the club full-time, then he was doing it as an advisory role. Both him and Johan Lang have had really good transfers, but they've also had a lot of misses. You've got to remember that Paratici signed Dan Juma. He signed Brian Hill. He was involved in that Brian Hill deal, which, ended up, he went back to Sevilla and won the Europa League. And we might as well have kept Lamela, because I think Lamela would have been a good player under Antonio Conte. So at the moment, it does, like, the whole club in general is a mishmash. I think we just need to, like these clubs I was mentioning before, your Brentford, your Brightons, they're set from top to bottom really, really well. Their recruitment up to their board, it's all working like clockwork. Whereas Tottenham, it's just an absolute minefield. We've got the second most, revenue, match day revenue, but our wages are one of the worst, and it just doesn't add up. But that's obviously problems at board level that I don't really want to get into today because it drives me mad. But I think, I'd like to see a world where we have maybe like a proper sporting director who's heading up all these transfers, who works closely with a manager who's just got so much energy and wants to improve players and will be a long-term success like an Iraola or a Thomas Frank. Because at the moment, under Ange and under the current guys, I can't see it, and I think it's extremely poor. But you're going to have to let me know in the comments down below. How do you see Tottenham setting up when it comes to the summer and beyond? Like, what manager are we going to have? Can you see, the whole club being stripped from top to bottom, or will it be the same old rubbish that we've come accustomed to? Let me know your thoughts, and as always, leave your likes, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And until next time, I'll catch you guys then. Bye.